what I was saying, I woke up this morning to hearing screams and hollers and people diving out of windows, talking about that's the end of my social security. There goes my welfare. You know what happens to my student loan? Everybody gnashing their teeth and pulling their hair. And I realized that this is a historical moment that we've been waiting for. That America finally gets the leader it deserves, a buffoon, bogus billionaire, who's probably won't make it through 4 years in office with his ill health. But in any event, this is the opportunity now. We don't have to point fingers. We don't have to say it was because of this or because of that and because black men didn't vote. Because we know that given the statistics and given the figures, that if the so-called non-voters, which constitute 0.5% of the population that even voted for Kamala, she still would have lost. It's the electoral college system that people don't understand. The electoral college system is a winner-take-all system. It was a system put in place by the founding fathers to ensure that those with property and those with a stake in the current capitalist system do not get voted out or do not get put in check by a majority of working people, a majority vote of working people. One vote does not count in America. It's the electoral college system that counts. It's a bogus system. And we could talk about more on that later on. But I think right now is the opportunity, is the chance for all of us to understand why building a united front, what is against fascism and against white supremacy, is so crucial now. Why it has to embrace radical abolitionists and even reform organizations and individuals so that we can build now towards the off year, 2 years from now, that we could perhaps talk about an independent political party, an independent political force, that we could demand uh, uh, um, um, things, that we could remove this black comprador class that 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 helped uh, um, throw away the power of millions of African people down the drain of the Democratic Party. I mean, look at these knuckleheads that's in the Congressional Black Caucus. They were all on board for Kamala. Look at all of these movie stars and activists that was up there twerking on the stage, throwing money at them. All of these knuckleheads that was doing all of this. They didn't put that money and that effort into building an independent black political party or independent political working class movement. They didn't put none of that money behind challenging the military police state and cop cities. They didn't put none of that money into challenging APAC and how they have more control over our black elected officials than we do. Where's Hakeem Jeffries going to be right
Jeffries.
now? That was talking about Israel today, Israel tomorrow, Israel forever. Now we can get rid of this nigga. We can get rid of this Negro and these proxies. And where are these black elected officials, the most that we've had in the whole history of black people in America? Where are the black faces in high places now? What's their point? How are we organized in the community based on voting for them? How is our community prepared to deal with the pushback and the backlash of fascists and ethno white nationalism? How are we going to deal with that now? We have to arm ourselves, or we're going to have to harm ourselves. We have to understand that all politics is local and that we need to take control of local politics. We need to push back the gentrification of finance capital and the high rising numbers of homeless people. We need to take control of our communities and get rid of the Eric Adams and these bootlickers that's in power in Atlanta and New York and Chicago, who never gave us anything, who never brought anything to the black community. Now is our time. We shouldn't mourn. We shouldn't gnash our teeth. We should organize. We shouldn't get mad. We need to get even. And the only way we can get even is to organize an independent political force in this country of working people, people of color, black people, and revolutionaries and abolitionists that could be a powerful voice for people to vote for and to use electoral politics as a mechanism to mobilize people, not as the belief that it's going to liberate us. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energized, and I'm ready to get to work.
I love it, because a lot of what I've been already hearing this morning is, even from some nominal, left of center spaces, is, well, remember, we were being told that Kamala is the easier enemy to struggle against. So now we got a harder fight. oh, I just lost my train of thought. But the point is that there were the point I was trying to get to was that there was a number of things listed as that have been made worse now for us in this struggle now that Trump has been elected. And oh, that was the other thing, that the Green Party didn't get the 5% threshold. The PSL didn't make any real waves electorally. Cornel West and Melina Abdullah didn't so there was no electoral advance in that sector, and Trump won and the easier enemy lost. So how is it that we could feel so emboldened as you're advocating
Man,
today?
that's all. That's all. That is the analysis of cowards. That's the analysis of punks who never wanted to challenge the system in the first place, who believed that their investment was going to be maintained, that their little social security was not going to be tampered with, that their little, their little perks from the table of white supremacy wasn't going to be harmed. Now, instead of understanding this in a positive way, that Trump is like herpes. People are like him are always going to return. It's the electoral college system. Look, the little 500.5% of the Jill Steins and Cornel Wests and Claudia Dela Cruz's that could be counted as votes would have never affected the outcome of this election. Would have never affected it. Look how many people stayed home. Over 60 million. Look how they won by 85 million. Look at, compared to what Kamala Harris is, I think 60 something million or 70 something million. What I'm trying to say here is that the demographics of the white supremacist settler state of America is the demographics of white supremacist state of America. And that a lot of the white people that talked about progressive politics, a lot of the neoconservatives and neoliberal white folks, when they got in behind that curtain, they pushed that button for Trump. And they pushed that button for Trump because they wanted to maintain the type of hegemony and power of white skin privilege in this country that they fear will be lost as this country becomes more a minority majority society. It's the electoral.
Drew, I'm sorry to cut you off, but is there something changing with your audio? Your audio's clicking pretty heavily all of a sudden. Did something change over there?
It probably the NSA done tuned us in, man. You got to tell them, man. Y'all got to let me talk, man. If they, y'all got to deal with that, man. I know y'all don't want to hear this. I know
Seems
the
better
Negroes
now.
don't. You see what I mean? Once you challenge them, they don't want to be on Front Street. Yeah. Once I ain't touched nothing. Yeah.
Hey, it did it. It just cleared up. Okay, good.
It just
Let
cleared
them
up.
know.
So I'm saying that rather than us, look feel defeated, rather than us feel that the greater of two evils won, we need to understand that U.S. foreign policy and U.S. domestic policy would have never changed under Kamala Harris. We need to understand that the institutions of democratic fascism have always been in place and selected the type of leader that could maintain it or in times of crisis. The U.S. empire is in crisis right now. And it's in crisis because of its foreign policies and the crisis of its proxies around the world. NATO is going to lose this war in the Ukraine. It's about to go belly up by the end of winter. The Israeli settler state is finished as an entity. It's the pariah of the entire world. The notion of international law and international rules and regulations have been dashed by the Zionist dogs who are bombing and murdering innocent babies and Palestinians in order to steal their land. The war in the Sudan, which is being subsidized by Egypt and by the UAE and by Arab governments who are getting millions of dollars in U.S. money, U.S. government arms to channel into the Sudan is going to come to a head as well. So the U.S. Policies would have never changed under Kamala Harris. They would have just appeared a little less strident, a little less vindictive. However, America gets the leaders that it deserves, and the empire in decline deserves Donald J. Trump. They deserve this piece of shit, and I couldn't. I'm overjoyed that finally, that the covers have been pulled off. The ethno nationalists, the racists who were once marginalized in the '60s, who were considered extremists, are now at the center of government, are now at the center of power. Okay, so there's no more pretending. There's no more dancing around the issues, talking about reform this and reform that. Now we know that the black comprador class that got us into this situation. Now it's time to move on them. Now it's time to get them out of office. Now it's time to rid ourselves of the Hakeem Greens and bring back. I'm sorry.
Jeffries.
I keep doing that to my black brother. I'm sorry, how Jeffries. I don't know. I just mix him up. I'm getting old. Anyway, yeah, it's time to get rid of him and the Meek Mills and all these Negroes. In fact, he's no longer the majority leader. He's going to be a minority leader if he's going to be any kind of leader. And they lost the Senate as well. And if we understand that all politics is local, this is the time for us to mobilize and build up on on the local level to take over the control of public safety institutions, to run these mayors like Adams out of office, to run these corrupt Negroes who are sitting in talking about reform, and they ran on the Democratic Party ticket and all of this stuff. Get rid of them now. Now we could organize an independent united front. Cornel West, Jill Stein, Claudia Dela Cruz, they all endorsed the idea and the concept of a united front during their campaigns. Now that these campaigns are over, now they could lend themselves to building this united front. Now the Green Party that's registered in 30-something states in the country could put on the local ballots, community control of public safety. Now we can mobilize around these things. There's an enormous amount of opportunities here for those organizers or in the community who have been toiling and fighting against white supremacy, against police murder and brutality, against homelessness and disenfranchisement of working people. This is our chance. This is our time. This is now. And we can't talk about how we lost this and we lost that. We were never invested in the first place. So now the Orange Man has made it clear. The lines of demarcation have been drawn. Black people have to arm themselves or harm themselves. The black bourgeoisie have to get off of this reform tip and start talking about building up a movement that would abolish white supremacist control of local politics and racism and white supremacy. We have to talk about changing U.S. foreign policy. And finally, I want to end with this note. When we talk about sending billions and billions of dollars to Israel, or bombs to Israel, we are not sending money. The money is going to the military industrial complex right here in the United States. It's going to Boeing. It's going to Teledyne. It's going to Microsoft. It's going to all of these companies that build up that build the war machines that Israelis are using to slaughter Palestinian people. So we need to understand that the United States budget, the United States economy is based on war. And in order to maintain that economy that's based on war, it has to have a militarized police force in the United States in order to suppress dissent and criminalize dissent. Well, now's the time for, we can't blame it on the sunshine. We can't blame it on the boogie. You understand? So we are. So Cornel, Claudia, let's get busy. All of the radicals and stuff that were pointing fingers at each other, all of the pork chop preachers that was talking about getting out the vote, and all of this stuff that had Kamala Harris speaking in their church and had Zionists speaking in their church talking about now's the time to get out the vote. Here, now's the time to get organized. Now's the time to get rid of their monkey asses and put people in power who really are about the Humpty Dumpty principle. And that Humpty Dumpty principle is that when you get into elected office, you tear it down so that they can't put it back together again. You get elected mayor, you by default, you create community control of public safety. Understand? You by default, you decentralize the police. You have the power to do it as mayor. We have the power to do it if we control the city councils. So that if you get voted out the next term, they'll never put it back together again. So this is what we have to do. We have to put black politicians.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. We had to put black politicians.
We have to put black activists in positions of local political power who don't or who are not looking for a career in capitalist bourgeois politics, but are instead involved in radically transforming the institutions during their term in office to the point where it would be impossible for racists to recapture those offices or for negative forces to recapture those positions and put them back the way they were before. So we all know that reactionary pushback has always come as a consequence of the gains of people of color. The reactionary pushback against the activists and the gains of the civil rights movement, the Voting Rights Act, symbolic as it was, all of the gains that we've gotten in the 60s, the pushback against that was the war on crime, was the war on drugs and mass incarceration of working class and poor people. Now it's our turn to push back, and we have to push back strong. We have to push back with uncompromising revolutionary and progressive and abolitionist vigor. So there's room for all of us in this united front,
So I
regardless of
love.
your politics.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.